back. Bangladesh, a neighbor which is battling unrest and uprising since July last year, has now tried to school India on peace. The Mohammad Yunus-led government has summoned the High Commissioner of India, Pranay Verma, and expressed concern over tension at the Indo-Bangladesh border. Foreign Secretary Ambassador of Bangladesh, Mohammad Jashimuddin, raised objection to the construction of barbed wire fencing by BSF on the border and called it unauthorized. Furthermore, Dhaka has expressed deep concern over the recent killing of a civilian who it claims was killed by the BSF in Sunamganj. The nation, which itself has been in the headlines over the mistreatment of minorities, has additionally urged India to refrain from any provocative actions that could escalate tensions and rather engage in dialogue. So what exactly is Bangladesh's game plan, if one can assume that the country even has a game plan? I'm being very fortunate to be joined by my esteemed guests at this hour, Ashok Sajjanhar, former ambassador, Maj Gen Sanjay Meston, who is a prominent defense expert, and of course Patikrit Pen, a preeminent geopolitical expert. Thank you all for joining me at this point. Let me start with you, Ambassador Sajjanhar. What do you make of this latest intent by Bangladesh, by the Mohammad Yunus government, to say that it plans to renegotiate certain pacts with India, which was signed with the Sheikh Hasina administration, and which now Yunus Sarkar feels that is a bit loaded in favor of India and against Bangladesh?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me on your show. I think what basically Bangladesh government is trying to, or the interim government, the caretaker government, for which there is no provision in the constitution of Bangladesh. I think we need to be clear about that. And they have come basically to power on the plank of anti-Sheikh Hasina. And this plank also then, conjoins itself on being anti-Indian, because relations between Sheikh Hasina and India were so very warm and cordial. So I think all these arguments that are being given, or these allegations that are being made, that these are unequal agreements or unequal treaties. Yes, they are unequal, but the benefit of all these agreements goes much more towards Bangladesh than it goes towards India, because India, under its neighborhood first policy, has been following the policy that we will move several steps towards our neighbors and give them advantages and give them benefits, and which will be non-reciprocal in nature. Our treatment of all with all these neighbors has been very generous. So, but Bangladesh is trying to provoke this because it wants to justify that it is in this position, and the people, those who have been put in position, whether it is Dr. Mohammad Yunus or it is the advisors, that they are working to safeguard the interest and promote the interests of Bangladesh. In fact, what they are doing is exactly the opposite, because all the statements that are being made by them are provocative in nature. All these issues that need to be discussed, as you know, it has been mentioned, the DG of BSF and the DG of BGB, Bangladesh border guards, they are to meet next month. And, there was no need for the foreign secretary or the advisor to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Bangladesh to come out with such provocative statements and, make these charges over and over again, because they find that the justification and the support for them amongst the people might be coming down. So they have to make these provocative statements against India, which has been seen to be close to Sheikh Hasina and hence close to,
So you're saying, Ambassador Sajjanhar, that this is
people.
essentially... You're saying
Yes,
that this is
Ritangshu.
essentially a security dilemma which is being born out of the internal conflicts within Bangladesh and the diminishing legitimacy of the Mohammad Yunus government. With security being a buzzword, let me then go across to Major General Sanjay Meston before I go to Patikrit as well. Major General Meston, I'm asking a layman's question here, which I'm sure a lot of our viewers may also have an issue with. What objection can a country have if we decide to put up fences on our side of the border? Because that, it seems, has been the trigger for this latest round of hostilities.
Absolutely no country can object if we are doing anything on our own territory. It is very, very clear. It is up to us
Exactly.
whether we put barbed wire fencing, whether we put concertina wire fencing, whether we put walls. It is up to us. It is our territory. So, firstly, there is no contention of the Bangladesh so-called this interim government to object to this. This is a very very wrong thing. And 2015, when we had the last border agreement with Bangladesh, let me tell you, most of the things were in their favor. We have given them 111 enclaves, and we have only got 51 enclaves.
Yes.
So it is obviously gone in support of Bangladesh. So Bangladesh, rightfully highlighted by the Ambassador Sajjanhar also, they are playing two things. One is anti-India stance, and of course the base is the internal politics of being anti-Sheikh Hasina. But also they are playing another hand. They are playing the Pakistani hand. That is what the whole agenda is. They are just now like puppets into the hands of Pakistan. And whatever Pakistan, every day they are not only doing provocative statements, they are now taking so many provocative actions against India each day, targeting our minorities, targeting so many things. And why they want to keep these borders open? It is to their interest, because they cannot take control or look after these so many Rohingya refugees who have been thrown out from Rakhine state in Myanmar. And that is why they want hook or crook. These people should be able to, as you have seen so many videos, they have escorts and smugglers who are
Exactly.
helping these people to cross over. India cannot accept such kind of illegal immigration, and therefore we have got full rights within our security measures to install all security measures, to install any fencing, erect any fencing, and to increase the number of patrols. It is up to us. It's our own land. We have to look after our safety concerns. But Bangladesh is playing into Pakistani hands, and they are
Okay.
exactly falling into the trap. And each day, I think they are the ones who are making such provocative statements, actions, that it is unnecessarily increasing the hostility. They want to increase the hostility with India. But I'm quite hopeful with the President Trump takeover. I think things will change, because President Trump had made a very clear statement that the minorities have to be protected, and we know this person was a stooge of Bill Clinton and so forth.
Well,
So
one
therefore,
hopes
I
so,
see.
Major General,
Yeah.
but there's also a cynical geopolitical view that the United States is responsible for this crisis in Bangladesh to begin with. On that note, let me also get in geopolitical voice, Pathikrit Pen, on the panel. Pathikrit, perhaps as we speak here, there's this report which I'm just reading across about BSF Mahila Praharis foiling a smuggling bid at the Indo-Bangladesh border in Tripura. And apparently the smugglers were even armed with sharp-edged weapons here. When you look at reports like these coming out from the border from both West Bengal and Assam and also from Tripura, a more insidious incentive comes from Bangladesh to object to India putting up fences to secure its territory, because these are the activities which are likely to be at the receiving end if India secures its boundaries with the fencing.
So, first and foremost, Ritangshu, I've been saying it for quite some time that we need a national border policy, which we do not have. And secondly, let's understand the border guards, Bangladesh will never cooperate beyond the point when you set up fencing. The reason being, in spite of the fact that almost 78 to 80% of the fence, land border has been fenced. Of course, the riverine border is a separate issue. There are these patches everywhere where, because of various reasons, fencing could not be put up. Today, BGB is even obstructing, creation or setting up of solar lights even. So they have a problem. Why do they do this? First and foremost, cattle smuggling, which is legitimized and institutionalized in Bangladesh. They want the cattle smuggling to continue. Second, of course, this illegal drug trafficking, fake currency, illegal arms. Fourth is invariably pushing in Bangladeshis into India to have this demographic change. And last but not the least, the present dispensation which has come to power and the kind of people they have released from the jail, including the dreaded terrorist organizations like Ansarul Bangla team and all their heads. So there is a push that if the border remains completely fenced, you cannot push in those elements. There have been recently in Bengal and Assam several such modules have been busted of ABT, Ansarul Bangla team, and probably they were planning something nefarious. Also, let us understand, we need the same standard operating procedure for Indo-Bangladesh border as we have for India-Pakistan border. On several occasions, what has happened over the last 10 years or say 15 years is that we have had a little relatively soft approach most of the time. BSF as uses pellet guns to shoot if there are intruders attacking, whereas from the other side they come in with machetes, they come in with sharp-edged weapons deliberately to hurt the BSF personnel. In the recent past, in the last few years after Modi government came in, maybe we have seen a certain amount of change where BSF is using probably a little bit more of lethal weapons, but we need a clear-cut SOP. If you breach the border at night, if you breach illegally, you are an adversary, and for the sake of national security and not just for self-defense, the BSF is authorized to shoot back with lethal weapon, not with a pellet gun. That is the SOP that we need, because
Yeah.
please understand, I reiterate, beyond a point, BGB, Border Guards Bangladesh, will not cooperate because that's the mandate they have. Their mandate is to ensure that the borders remain open. Their mandate is to ensure that the border has porosity. So if you try to plug in the porosity, they will create obstruction. There can be DG level talks, there can be
Which is why
commander
we are
level
seeing this
talks. All
pushback
those
come
are
in
fine.
from the Yunus administration.
Yes, you can have talks from
Which is
their
why we
side,
see
which
this
is
pushback
fine, but
coming in.
please
So
do
then
not
let me...
expect cooperation.
Okay, then speaking of cooperation, let me put the ball back in Ambassador Sajjanhar's court. Ambassador Sajjanhar, you mentioned that right now a lot of the actions within Bangladesh as temporary administration is being born out of a desire to distance itself from Sheikh Hasina's policies as much as possible. Which one is that then why India has become collateral damage? Do we then approach this as something in the fact that India is collateral damage, or do we see ourselves as the necessary victims, as a deliberate intended victims of Bangladesh's aggression?
Well, I think it is partly both of them together. One is, of course, Sheikh Hasina, and Sheikh Hasina has also taken refuge in India. They have asked for her deportation. India is definitely not going to allow that to happen because, what we know, any judicial process that might take place, Ritangshu, in Bangladesh will be sort of a kangaroo court. It is, as I said, it is not a legally elected government that has asked for the repatriation of Sheikh Hasina. And I think the mandate with which Mohammed Yunus was brought in basically was that there should be stability that should be established, there should be security in the country, there should be the economy should should be brought on an even keel, that there should be law and order that should be imposed, and after that, quick elections should be held. Now, there is none of these four aspects, Mohammed Yunus has been able to do, his advisors have been able to do. And under huge pressure, they have been saying that, the elections might be held by the end of the year or next year. At some place, he has even seemed to suggest that elections could take place 4 years because he set up all those commissions and he wants to change the constitution. So I think basically they are fishing more for time. They are looking at, provoking new issues, new factors. And there is no better target as far as they are concerned than India, because the government, the interim government, seems to have been taken over by the jihadists. The Islamic jihadists, they were the ones who were in front in terms of toppling the regime of Sheikh Hasina. And they are the ones who are calling the shots. It is not Dr. Mohammed Yunus himself. So I think once there is this unhappiness even amongst the BNP regarding this interim government, because the BNP would also like quick elections to take place. I think that is when as far as the interim government is concerned, when the people start losing faith in that, that is when they start coming up with all these propositions. So I think we will have to send a very strong message. We had sent our Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri to Dhaka on the 9th of last month, and we really need to see that the message goes through. We'll really have to read out the Riot Act to Bangladesh, because so far we've been taking a very soft approach, a very calibrated approach. But I think the message needs to go through very sternly, that India's security interests, the fundamental core security interests, cannot be tampered with, and India will do everything possible to ensure that our security is not compromised. Ritangshu.
Now, speaking of security, Major General Sanjay Meston, you mentioned that in order to look at this as a security issue, we have to also not negate the influence of China and Pakistan, especially Pakistan, given the sympathies existing for Islamabad in the current administration here. For long, we have looked at the possibility of fighting a two-front war. Are we now looking at possibly a 2.5 or maybe even a 3-front war, given that Bangladesh's hostilities only continue to escalate every passing day?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the way situation is developing in Bangladesh, and even
Okay, I think we have... Yeah, go on, Major General. We had lost you for a second. Please go on. Okay, I think we have some problems connecting there at this point here, but maybe then put that across to Pathikrit. Pathikrit, you mentioned the need for a national border policy here. Is part of that now looking at perhaps Bangladesh at the same level of security threat as we would look at a China or as a Pakistan, not take off these rose-tinted glasses of SAARC amity that we have had towards countries like Bangladesh or possibly even Nepal and Sri Lanka now, given the fact that these countries have shown a worrying tendency to be more influenced by China and sometimes even by Pakistan?
So, Ritangshu, let's put it this way, that even when Sheikh Hasina was in power, illegal infiltration, trafficking, all these elements coming in, doing all these illegal activities did not stop. So, irrespective of whoever is in power, your national security being paradigm, you need to have a focused border policy. You cannot presume, let's not presume, I think for a long period of time, with all due respect, the security establishment has been too much Pakistan centric and even then focused on China, but never considered Bangladesh as a problem. Now, probably what happened in the last 5-6 months has been a blessing in disguise, because many of those illusions actually have been broken down, and many of those dirty things came out of the closet as to what majority in Bangladesh consider and perceive about India. So let's put it this way. National border policy, why I keep on saying is this: irrespective of whoever comes, you might have good relation even with Nepal, but that doesn't mean that you should not have a fencing. I mean, if you have good relation with your neighbor, doesn't mean that you keep your doors open at night. So have a priority project when it comes to fencing of both the borders with Nepal and Bangladesh. Let me tell you the reason. You know, Pakistan has used an open border with Nepal to the hilt for all kind of supplying of men, money, material for all kind of nefarious activities within India. So if we continue to have an open border policy with Nepal, ultimately a day will come we will be blaming Nepal for all the activities happening here, because it has been used by others. If you see the Simanchal region in Bihar, Purnia, Katihar, Kishanganj, these areas, demography has been altered. They have a border with Nepal. Bangladeshis go to Nepal. Via Nepal, they enter these regions. They get these fake Aadhaar cards. And there is a vested interest which actually helps them, the ecosystem, to get these things, and they become so-called legal citizens. Look at the demography in those regions. How has it changed? Because of open border policy with Nepal, because of the porous border policy with Bangladesh, soft border policy. So yes, Bangladesh is a gray area. I will not say that it is an adversary at par with Pakistan, but we need to be very focused about our borders, because basic things will not change irrespective of who comes to power. Terrorism thriving, radicalization thriving in Bangladesh is a reality, and it was a reality even when Sheikh Hasina was in power. Back to you.
All right, so then let me come to you, Major General Sanjay Meston, for the last word. Are we looking at a 3-front war, perhaps even more going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. We are looking for that. And therefore, as I was highlighting, we need to be prepared on all sides. And especially, I do agree that, securing our borders is one of the topmost priorities, because the illegal immigration, whether from Nepal, we saw that lady had, infiltrated along with 4 children, broad daylight. The SSB was deployed there. So we have to firstly build an accountability. We should not accept such tolerances as to how the border infiltration is taking place. from such porous borders like Nepal. Number two, the security has to be strengthened in terms of we may have to put more numbers, fencing, whatever it is, UAVs. We have to have a proper natural grid to secure all the borders. Otherwise, these so-called sleeper cells, terrorists, they'll be infiltrating into India from all directions, and it will be actually three-front war. Though I talk in terms of country, but then the half front is, of course, these terrorists who will be just infiltrating into India. And we have seen what are the implications of the terrorism, the way it's happening in Israel and Gaza and Hamas, etc., the Hezbollah. We know the potential of these sleeper cells and these terrorists. So to prevent any future action and war, they can be really very, very affecting our logistics, operation logistics.
All right. So in fact, on that note, we'll have to move on there because we are getting important statements from the Army Chief on both the border situation in China and Pakistan. So let me thank you, Ashok Sajjanhar, Maj Gen Meston, and also Pathikrit for joining me with those details here. But let's quickly move on to the big breaking that's coming in.